Well, then doing musculoskeletal compared to doing IV stuff is a lot different too. And I'm sure we'll talk about, your back and where you went through with this. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm gonna fix your shoulder tear, your labrum tear, your arthritis, and I'm gonna give you an IV, or I'm gonna give you intramuscular." Well, it helps overall inflammation, and you may feel better, but that's not fixing the injury. There was a professional player. He went overseas. He tore up his knee. Went overseas, did an IV, felt phenomenal. 2 games later, completely destroyed his knee and had to have complete reconstruction because it wasn't a direct injection to try to fix that tissue. And that's the nuance of what we do. And that's where, I've been trying to get across that point. It's taken me 15 years, really. I've been giving lectures in the past few years and really refining my thought process, and even trademarked a procedure term to try to differentiate us. And it's called the Prolo graft procedure. And that's the all-encompassing, comprehensive way to inject a joint, a back, whatever it might be. Now, there's 3 ways to inject for musculoskeletal. There's joint injections, there's spot injections, which are, hey, is that hurt here? Let's inject there. There's one tendon injury here, so let me inject that. Or we say, well, what caused these injuries? Well, it was the instability. We need to get the microtissue, the capsule, the ligaments, the connective tissue. We need to strengthen that and inject your injuries. And that's where I've really evolved my thinking into that. And then we say, what do we inject? And that's where we are now.
The delivery is what he's got. For instance, my girlfriend broke her clavicle. He grew that bone back using my product, but delivering it where it needed to be delivered.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference that I always try to tell people when it comes to what Sean does versus other doctors is the way he injects. It's talk a little bit about that, because you're kind of a savant when it comes to that.
Yeah, when we first started, it was your voodoo. Now at least it's turning into more mainstream.
Exactly.
Well, so there's 3 parts to success when it comes to injuries and injecting stem cells, PRP, whatever it might be, regenerative wise. And the first is the technique of the injection. Okay, are you putting the needle in the right place? 2 is the product. Is the product good? Is it great, actually? And then the third, the smaller part, but there is a portion of the person's body, their chemistry, whether they have toxins, genetics, that I've seen some people not have the reaction that I would have expected. But let's go back to the first, because the technique is the key factor in most things. And I came out of prolotherapy. So right before medical school, 1 month before, I got hit in the face, knocked my teeth backwards, had to have them wired together, started having headache. Never had pain in my life. Now I'm having headaches like this and this 24 hours a day. And after the prescription of hydrocodone wore out, I was like, well, let me pop something else. So I was taking 12 Motrin a day. And then I went to medical school. And all of a sudden, then I'm in class from basically 8 till 5 or 6, and then I'm studying, and then I'm not sleeping because of the pain. I'm popping these. I'm hurting my stomach, and I went the complete traditional route. I went through physical therapy, went to maxillofacial surgeons, went to dentists, let them shave my teeth down, and my pain was still there. Had injections, all kinds of stuff, and finally, 4 months in, I went to an osteopathic school. Well, somebody said, you need to try this manipulation. They have a clinic here. I went in, and there's an older doc there that had done craniosacral for 50 years. And for the first time without medicine after that day, I had no pain for 24 hours. Well, that started me to think, well, why? Why don't we hear about this? Why didn't any of the surgeons tell me about this, the dentists? So I came from that same critical mindset that people are coming from now. And I won't go into the full story. I have it other places, but I went through that process. I had injections into my jaw, started with prolotherapy, and then it went into PRP and stem cell, and then I had acupuncture. Those were the 3 things that got me better. And so I made a decision in my mind. I want to learn those 3 things as good as I can to get people the best portion of health, and to take their pain away naturally. And so prolotherapy is the original injection technique that I learned in order to do things properly. It started nearly 100 years ago with the Society of Herniologists, and they treated hernias with a substance in order to grow the tissue back without surgery. And then it got into the injections for pain. 1937, the first documented case of publishing in prolotherapy for the TMJ was done. in JAMA, out of all places. But why isn't that out there? It never took on. There were books written about this in the 1950s. And now it's been amplified. And then as the biologics came out, it made more sense. PRP, stem cell, people can relate. PRP came out of heart surgery and dentistry. It would heal open heart surgeries faster. And then dentistry, it could help the bone grow faster. But the prolotherapy technique was the theory that the whole joint is the instability of the joint's the problem. Then we have to inject your injuries as well. Then you get better long-term results. So I took that philosophy and I went to, even in medical school, I started taking courses. And then when I got out, I found guys that I thought were the best, and I spent months with them. They were doing these injections since the 1970s. And I saw people getting out of wheelchairs and, other kind of crazy things with chemicals only. And we'll kind of talk about that with your back a little bit, because that's what I started with.
Right.
But now that we have PRP and stem cell, we can get better results without as much of the headache and pain that we went through. So that technique, so if we had a shoulder injury, I'd be injecting along the front of the capsule and labrum, the top, the back. I would also inject the rotator cuff tendons and muscles and the joint itself. And it creates a lot more inflammation, a lot more pain, and the recovery feels like a surgery. I mean, you just went through your shoulder with it, and it's kind of frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
But that, if you are patient enough, the healing effect happens because you go through acute inflammation for 2 weeks. That goes down, then you go into tissue remodeling, and your body builds new tissue, and that can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years. With some of the stem cell research, they showed that the T cells that we want in the body, they get activated, and they're active for 2 years after. And so you get lasting effects with these products, which we never had before. But the other part of the technique that makes my stuff very unique, which people don't like, is when I go in, I'm not just, let me look at the ultrasound and put it right there and take it out. Well, we need to do that, but I go down to the bone, and a lot of times what I feel scar tissue. Well, that scar tissue builds up. Why? Because pieces of tissue have torn away, and now it restricts that tendon, the joint, whatever it might be. So we need to break it up. So part of my technique is going in and breaking it up. And people don't like it because it's painful. But if you want best long-term results, this is what you do. But I've also realized some people just don't want to do that, right? So I take a step back and I go, hey, we can do a joint injection. The results aren't going to be as good, but we can. Right. Or we can, if you just want a spot that wants to be injected, fine, we can do that too. I mean, me and Dr. Morris run our office, and we're both MSK experts. We both are ultrasound experts, diagnostic and injecting. And we have spine people come in our office to do disc injections and epidurals and other things. And we've had so many things we've been able to fix. And, and I say fix, but it's not us fixing it. When we put the needle somewhere, we're not fixing anything. We're telling the body to bring the blood flow over here and heal it itself. Whatever we put with that needle injection, it amplifies the response of our treatment. So, not everybody can afford stem cells. So if we do prolotherapy with dextrose, we'll get an amplified response to some degree, but not as much as the others. In general, the hierarchy, if we had to put it there, PRP is 3 times stronger than prolotherapy, and stem cell products, whether it be exosomes, amniotic tissue, connective tissue, bone marrow, adipose, cells, MSCs, they're 3 times stronger than PRP. That's how I think about it when I'm looking at a patient and deciding how I'm going to treat them. And then getting the right products is the other part. And if people are willing to, I love IV therapy. Anything that has a needle, I'm probably doing it. And we'll do IVs to get the body ready for this. Right. And, like vitamin C is a great example. It is necessary to make connective tissue. So why, if you're injured, why aren't you on vitamin C? And most people just don't get into this stuff. But there are many more things, but that's a nutshell of how I think when I look at a patient.
Doctor, talk a little bit about like where you are today in hearing this news and now where your brain goes of like what's next.
Well, my brain has been scrambled because if you think for 11 years I've been making something with a goal and repeatedly, right? So when I got my FDA approval, I had to compare the lot I made today to the lot I made in 2016 and show that it was the same, had comparability. Now all of a sudden you're saying that I should have $30 million extra in my bank account because it's legal, but it's not really like that. I wouldn't have the trust of people like this if I hadn't done all that.
Right.
So now, we were just chosen as one of the top teams in the X Prize. So that required that I rewind your aging. Well, I was going to have to do that in the Bahamas, and I had a clinic there set up to do that. Well, now you ask yourself, well, it looks like I can do it here. So we'll call that. I had grown up as a professional tennis player. I stopped playing, and over 20, 30 years, I kind of lost my timing. By doing this X Prize protocol, which involves focused ultrasound to the hypothalamus, exosomes IV, suddenly I started noticing I could do things. Like I could jump up and down off my boat without slipping. Then I saw a saddle horse, and I thought, hey, I think I can jump over that, which, I don't jump over anything. I haven't jumped a long time. And I cleared it. And when I cleared it, I thought, well, maybe I can play tennis. And so I went out to a clinic and I hit it. And, they didn't even charge me for it because, it was like having another pro there, which I haven't been able to do in a long time.
Yeah.
So just amazing what can be done.
And that's just with IVs.
That was just with IVs. But we've been so restricted, right? I have all this anecdotal evidence from him just because of what we've done over 10 years.
Right.
But now look at what we're going to be able to figure out, and dosages and methods of application like he's talking about. So it's just scary what we can bring you back to. And actually, don't take it from me. There's a guy named David Sinclair. He's a Harvard professor, and he has a Yamanaka factor pill he thinks he's going to come out with, but again, he's got to get that FDA approved. And he said, if you had asked me 10 years ago if we could really live till 150 years, I would have said no. As a credible scientist, I'm not going to say that. But now, looking at my students' experiments, looking at what we're doing, I'm absolutely saying that. And my little catchphrase had been 300 years. I'm turning 50 this year, so I'm going to call it my 300th birthday. That's in 2 weeks. But, if he's saying that till 150, and I'm saying that I've already seen your epigenetic changes go down in patients we've treated, and I haven't been able to optimize it yet, we've just done what we've done, the sky is really the limit. Talk to us 10 years from now. So I think we can absolutely stop your aging now. I think we can rewind it now. And I think we're going to live a long time and healthy. Right.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, to amplify that point, if people would have known me, you probably don't remember what I look like, and I'm glad you don't think like that. But my friends that have known me forever, they go, Sean, we saw you change every 5 years. And lately, it's been even more emphatic. Like every year, my patients come and go, you look way younger now than you did last year. Mm. And at the beginning, it was because I did chelation. I did vitamin therapy. Then I got into ozone therapy. Then I got into stem cell and exosomes. And I've done probably 1,500 IVs on myself. And then I decided I was feeling aches and pains myself. So 2 years ago, I was like, I want to check my whole body. Mm-hmm. So I had 3 doctors in the room. I had anesthesia, put me to sleep, and they did 400 injections in my body. And, once you believe in
with the exosomes?
Well, I mixed exosomes and amniotic tissue or connective tissue. It's pieces of tissue.
Yeah.
And then add the exosomes to get all the more, we'll call them generically growth factors, amplify the response. And, because once you believe in this, like he said, what if longevity is doing things, and like people like David Sinclair, you have to do something.
And you have to work out. We cannot just give you an injection and you're going to live. No, you have to give what we're giving you to the test, basically, or nothing's going to happen. So what are you going to, I never heard that story.
The 400 injections?
What are you going to call that? That's got to have a name.
If you want the ultimate experience, okay. I got to come up with it. It'll be Prolograph Plus. I don't know. But no, we have a sped up version of it.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. I'll have to show it to you because everybody's like,
how long did it take?
4 hours.
Wow.
I was under for 4 hours. But I did my entire spine. So I had some big things going on too. I didn't do it just, nowadays I'd do it just because, but back then I had 5 herniations in my neck. I was getting tightness. I didn't have any radiating, but I couldn't move. I was uncomfortable. I was getting headaches. I was tight. I was like, this is just not fun. And then, so I had somebody do 5 disc injections. And then we did 40 injections in the cervical spine, even all the way at that C1 vertebra. And then my entire spine all the way down. I had something called Viadisc injected into my lumbar disc, which is a dehydrated cadaver disc material. One of the best things we've ever seen, and it gives space back to that vertebra. And then I had my my hips, my both wrists, both elbows, shoulder, knees, feet, you name it. Even sexual wellness, I had that done. Even hair, I did everything. I was like, why not? I'm under, so go for it. So this is the ultimate experience if you want to get better. We spend a month at my clinic, and we'll put you through the ringer, but you're going to look healthier and younger than you ever have before.
Come get your penis injected at Dr. Goddard's.
Yeah.
Well, and that leads us into peptides too. I mean, he was doing peptides before I saw them in our conferences, right? And
I've been a funny person when it comes to like supplements. If I see anybody talk about a supplement, I find it and then I try it myself. Like I've been doing that since I was like 15 years old.
The problem with me, I can't tell the difference. I take a supplement.
Yeah. So
you need to do that high intensity. Yeah.
So peptides, I was talking to Sean about peptides before he even knew what they were.
So how does NAD work? When you take NAD, how does it help your workouts?
I think for me, the NAD, for me, it's more like, so I've always believed that there's a direct correlation between mind, body, and spirit. Like it's all like the same. Like as far as like it all, like when you're the best mentally and you're the best spiritually, then the body's going to be the best. And then vice versa. When your body's the best, then that helps. Like it all talks to each other. So for me, the NAD, it just does something where I'm just clear. There's no brain fog. There's no like, some days you just fill up, you just feel kind of off. So for the NAD, the next day, I don't feel off at all. I feel like my best self. And it gives me that extra like kind of, I don't like the word energy because I think that's associated with like, caffeine or something, but it's more of like a sense of well-being that goes beyond that caffeine feeling. It's more of a like a clarity. And then whenever you have this clarity of mind, you're just able to push through and motivate yourself to go for it when it comes to working out. I don't know.
Well, and I like to categorize it. What does NAD do? It's a mitochondrial stimulator, right? And then I think what else does that? Well, methylene blue can do that. And then even ozone has obviously direct pathway with oxygen to the mitochondria, but we've seen it affect the NAD pathway. And what I typically see is that clarity of mind. And that's how I separate. When I'm thinking about IVs, how do we categorize them, right? I mean, they can be, I think, mitochondrial stimulators. If you just want to come in and you don't want to do any testing, okay, we need some basic blood work to get started. Well, we're going to do NAD, we're going to do methylene blue, we're going to do ozone. Why? Because I know that's going to make you better, and you're going to either play better as an athlete or you're going to function better as a person at work, at home, whatever it might be.
What was it? What was the very first stem cell IV we did together?
The name of it?
No, just the type. Was it exosomes?
No. The very first one was mesenchymal stem cells, and I want to sidebar here for a minute because everybody calls it a stem cell, and I don't know if I've really talked to you about this, but there was a researcher that coined the term mesenchymal stem cell. His name was PhD Arnold Kaplan, Case Western University. And super smart guy, but in 2017, through his research, he goes, you know what? It's not really a stem cell. It's a signaling cell, because we found that this cell in the body, it doesn't become a new piece of tissue, a new tissue. It releases something called an exosome, growth factor, exosome. And that is what signals your tissue-specific stem cells to work. And unfortunately, the word stem cell got started in the 90s, so everybody wants to call it that. I don't know if you agree with me on that.
I'm going to call it a stem cell now.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
well, I think it carries more weight when you call it a stem cell.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I call bullshit.
No, he's got a point. And the issue is that when you're growing, that's absolutely a stem cell. It is controlling the growth of all the cells around you. What he's saying is when you take those cells, just inject them into the knee, they're not going to change into cartilage. But they will signal still the cells around you to make cartilage be made. So that's why I transferred to exosomes. I didn't know anything about exosomes in 2014. Nobody did either. I was doing cells. But I started seeing in my cultures that just the secretions, the exosomes, were doing the same, if not better than the cells. And I started testing that in humans with COPD and seeing better outcomes with just the exosomes. So it's definitely, and that's why he changed the name to medicinal signaling cell. But if you take a fibroblast or some other cell, it's not going to signal any regeneration. So it's definitely working as a stem cell, but through signaling.